Road podcast, telling the stories of the South Texas racers from the past and present.
Hello, my name is James Parks, and welcome to the Thunder Road podcast, filmed here at the Top Hat Signs and Design Studio. I would like to take a moment to thank our sponsors, 112 Bodies, Proline Fabrication, S&S Monuments, and of course, Top Hat Signs and Designs. So we had a rain out on 4/29, so our last race that we actually ran at the South Texas Race Ranch was 4/21, and I want to go over the feature winners. But I also have a helper today to go over some of the feature winners, especially on the go-karts. So with me this evening, I have Pistol Rose Parks, the driver of the Intermediate Go-Kart 3P. So in the AOC Auto Parts E-Mods, we had Jaden Edmond. Jaden Edmond was a hauling ass. He had a pretty good gap on the field. He put on a great show. And the Top Hat Micro Mods, Michael Lindsay won the feature in the 8-ball. Michael Lindsay was debuting the CCAC car. That's a new sponsor for him, so congratulations to him and the sponsors. In the 600cc non-wing, we had Alex Kropakowicz. Not exactly sure where he is out of or where he's from, but he did win the feature. In the restricted wing, restricted micros, we had Ty Fulgham. Not sure if I'm saying the last name correctly or not. And in the feature for the limited modifieds, we had Cody Beto. Cody Beto won the feature at the South Texas Race Ranch. The go-karts, I'm going to turn that over to Pistol Rose. Pistol Rose is going to give us a little bit of insight on the go-kart side. So, Pistol, what do you got over there?
So, our go-kart winners from 421 are youth class number 33, Leia Hudler, won. And we only had 2 kids in that class.
It'll grow. There'll be more kids coming.
Yeah. So if anybody knows somebody that's new to racing, they could definitely come to the race ranch in the youth class. Intermediate, I'm just going to go ahead and skip that class.
Why is that?
You could talk about it.
Well, Pistol, Pistol's a little bashful, a little shy. Pistol won her heat race and her feature. She was a tad bit nervous because this is a move. This is a step up. From her red plate to the green plate. She was a little nervous, but she was spot on. It didn't seem to bother at all. She won her heat race and her feature, so congratulations.
Thank you. And our junior class, number 13, Easton Jackson. Their family does a lot of work. They're having trouble right now with S&S because Cheryl broke her ankle. And I really hope that she gets better. But congratulations to Easton. And our senior class, number 87, Parker Titzman, he won his race. He did very well. I was watching from in the stands. But what I saw, he did really good. Our Predator class, number 113, Kyle Jackson won that race.
I believe he won it on the last lap.
I think so, too. I'm not sure. I didn't get to watch as much of that race. I only got to watch, I think
he moved the leader on the last lap and ended up taking the win. What about that juice box deal?
So, our juice box class, Rebel Lee, he won. He is the craziest racer I have ever seen. If you are racing with him, please be careful.
Well, it won't be too long, and you'll be racing with him.
Do not look at your tires while you're racing. What? He's just like, ooh, look at my tires. Doesn't know where he's going.
Well, maybe that's something you need to teach him. So as Rebel is growing with his go-kart, you can teach him some of your smarts, some of your race savvy, some of the techniques that you use. You can teach that to him. Mm-hmm. But while we're talking about that, let's talk about you a little bit. So how old are you now?
I am 8 years old.
8 years old. So how old were you when you started racing go-karts? Do you remember that?
Well, I started racing Power Wheels when I was 4 years old at L87. But when I actually started racing go-karts, I was 6 years old.
6.
At my first Stars event in Robstown.
So we put a go-kart together for Pistol. She ran some practice laps at L87. You got comfortable there. And then the first green flag she took was at the Stars event, one of the biggest go-kart races in the Coastal Bend area. So she kind of cut her teeth on that deal, but she did well for her first experience. She was a little nervous. She tried to knock the wall down a few times, but we learned together as a family, and she progressed very well. I'm very proud of her. So this past weekend, you had been raced in the youth class, the youth rookie class. You were running the red plate. So you won the points championship at the Stars event for the youth and the youth pro. 2 championships, which was stellar. Good job.
Thank you.
So you had to move up a class. You had to move up to the intermediate, which means a different restrictor plate. Gives you a little more power out of the engine. You were nervous. You were very nervous. You told me you were nervous when I would take you to school. So tell me about that. Tell me about Saturday night. What were you thinking? What was going on? And how did that work out for you?
I was very nervous, but I was actually very excited because we haven't been racing a lot since the last Stars event. So I was really excited that I won my first race of the season.
At the South Texas Race Ranch. Well, good job. So what do you think about your little brother coming on? What do you think about your little brother doing the juice box? And right around the corner, he's going to be racing a go-kart. Are you ready for that?
Not necessarily. He is a speed demon. He needs to calm down. Not look at your tires while you're racing. You're just going to crash into the wall or the tires or people. I really hope he doesn't run over anybody. That's my number one. He better not run over anybody. That's my number one. And in the past, we'll work together so he could get fast enough and he could be more focused in racing so he can move up to a go-kart in the youth class.
Well, you said we needed more karts in the youth class, so there's one more right there.
Well, that's next year.
Well, we'll see. So do you enjoy racing your kart? Tell everybody what your go-kart's name is.
My go-kart's name is Rosie. I named her that. I name a lot of things, like Rosie or something Rose. My middle name's Rose, that's why. And I just really seem to like when I put like a Y or something.
Kind of make it personalized and make it your own.
Yeah.
Well, that's cool. How about your sponsors? How about the folks that help you get to the kart races, the folks that help you keep that kart in top-notch shape? Let's talk about those folks.
Top Hat Signs and Designs, my mom, Chris Dudley, Proline Fabrication, my dad, Dustin Witchy, Kyle, several more. Cody, and I'm sure there's more. 112 Bodies, Chris Dudley, Skip and Cheryl Gray, Gray's Recycling. They do a lot of stuff for us. They really help us when we're doing racing. My brother, Rebel Parks, my mom, Erica Parks, and my kart crew that I couldn't race without. My dad, James Parks, Chris Dudley, my papa, Bill, and Hector. I could not race without them.
Well, Pistol, I'm glad you got to come on the Thunder Road podcast today. This is a big deal for you. Did you enjoy yourself? Did you have a good time? Good deal. Well, thank you for coming. And we're racing Friday. We're racing Friday at L87. So thank you for coming on. Hopefully you had a good time. So in this episode of the Thunder Road podcast, we're joined by a gentleman that has sold race gas to multiple genres of racing, circle track racing, drag racing, street racing, motocross. Pretty much anything that needs race gas has been purchased from this guy. So with that being said, I'd like to introduce Jody Keys.
Hello.
Jody, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me here.
No problem. Tell us a little bit about the history. Tell us a little bit about the history of Buster's. We all know Buster's has had race gas. We all know the propane side, but tell us a little history about how it got to where it is now.
Buster's was started by my father-in-law in 1970, and I worked my way through college out there, and 81, I graduated from college and worked in the natural gas industry. And then in about 1994, I got the opportunity to purchase it, and I did. And a couple of years later, I decided to build a car, and the race gas just kind of worked hand in hand because it helped out.
Help with the expense of it, I'm sure.
Yes. Yes.
So before Buster's, where did guys get race gas, or was it even available in this area? Because I've been in Corpus over 25 years, and you've always been the place that had fuel.
Tommy Temple used to sell it.
Tommy was selling fuel at his location. All right. So now what is your role in Buster's?
I'm retired. Sold out a couple of years ago due to some health reasons, and I still go in. I still go in every day and work. But the gentleman that bought it is a local gentleman, and he's doing a great job with it.
Well, that's cool. I'm a local business owner too. Small businesses are a tough deal, so I'm glad to hear that a small business stayed in-house, basically,
Yes.
stayed in town to another local family. That's a big deal for me. I was just there last week buying some fuel, and Jody was there right at the door, and I said, "What are you doing?" He said, "I have to sit here so I can see both sides of the bay out there where they were filling up propane." But no, that's a really cool deal. It's a great business that you guys are in, and it's really neat that it's a family business and it has stayed that way. It sounds like. So one of the things that drew me to Jody was I went to his location and I said, "Hey, I got this podcast going. Have you heard it?" And he said, I kind of heard about it. And I said, "Man, I think I want to get some drag racers on there." And he said, "Well, I cut my teeth in circle track. I've been in Corpus 25 years and I had no idea." So when he told me that struck my interest, because if I didn't know, I don't know how many other people may or may not have known. So Jody's here today. He's going to tell us a little bit about the history, about some of the folks he helped, about some of the things he has done. He's also going to talk to us a little bit about some of his personal adventures and some of the things he's done. He's been on national TV. That's kind of a cool deal, and we'll let him talk about that. So tell us a little bit about how you got involved in racing, and what kind of racing did you originally get involved in?
When I was a young child, my dad worked on Dub Rollins' car, the purple number 4 car, and I've been around racing since day one, basically.
So the Rollins family is very well known in the racing
Yes.
community. I believe Shorty Rollins maybe ran some NASCAR stuff, and that's Dub's brother. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right. So basically, y'all were racing CC Speedway,
CC
Longhorn
Speedway.
Speedway, Austin, San Antonio as well.
San Antonio, Austin, Odessa, Midland, Altus, Oklahoma.
So you're running the TIDA
Right.
series then. All right. Well, tell us a little bit about that. Tell us a little bit about the traveling, about the cars. Tell us what you know and what you did, and how you associated with that group.
Well, I don't recall exactly what happened, but my brothers had a Torino that had a Boss 302 in it, and at the time, Al Yeomans was driving a Torino previously, and he got out of it, and then somehow he wound up driving my brother's car. And then from there, we got hooked up with Slick, and Slick started out in the hobby cars.
And what year do you think this was roughly, if you had to guess?
Golly, I was still in high school, probably 74, 75, somewhere around there.
Okay.
And from the hobby cars, a couple of years later, Al went up to, I'm pretty sure it was Indianapolis, Indiana, and bought a Mustang that was based off of a 65 Ford chassis, and ran that, and then got track champion at the Speedway, at Corpus Christi Speedway in '78. So
tell us a little bit about those cars for people that are familiar with racing. What kind of cars were these? Were these adjustable suspensions, big fat tires, all the motor you can handle, and then some?
Basically, one carburetor, and I believe they had a tire limit, but it was, like I say, it was based off of a 65 Ford chassis, coil spring car. Pretty, by today's standards, pretty simple.
Well, today's modifieds are out of control as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
So, but I remember as a young man traveling to CC Speedway, traveling to San Antonio Speedway, and there was some times where I rode with my grandpa and we would go to Longhorn. But I remember watching like the TIDA series and those things. And as a young man out of the valley, that was NASCAR to me. And those were beautiful cars. Guys took a lot of pride in that stuff. So you guys are traveling doing this TIDA deal?
Yeah, well, so let's back up. In 78, got championship at the Speedway. In 79, we got hooked up with Paul Cheatham, and he had Labonte's old car. And I don't really recall what happened to his driver. I believe he got sick. And the car was wrecked, and then we put it together, and then we ran it in San Antonio and got championship in San Antonio in 79. And in 80, we got hooked up with Alan Yates, And in 81, and we just kind of ran some races all over in 81, in 80. In 81, we ran at Longhorn Speedway on Friday nights, and then the Speedway on Saturday nights, and we got championship at both tracks the same year.
That's pretty cool. It's Friday nights, and then hopefully you didn't tear nothing up.
Yep.
Sounds like your driver had his head on straight and probably didn't tear a lot of stuff up.
He's a good guy.
Tell us a little bit about Alan Yates. I don't necessarily know that gentleman, but tell us a little history on him.
It's kind of hard to say. He's one of a kind. He was a guy that if he liked you, he'd give you the shirt off his back, and if he told you something, you could take it to the bank.
He was a straight shooter,
Yep.
no matter what it came down to. Liking you or disliking you, he told you where you stood.
That's right. Yep.
The Cheatham family, I know of a Paul Cheatham that did some go-kart stuff. I'm assuming it's the same family.
Probably.
I probably know the son, but do you know any more about the Cheatham family? They were out of the Corpus area, obviously.
Right. He
just had some race cars, and
he had a construction business, if I recall correctly.
Friday nights in Austin, as far as I know, that Longhorn Speedway has been shut down for a little while.
That's correct.
There's a lot of stories to be told about that racetrack and some different things that happened there. It's pretty neat that y'all were able to run 2 nights a week and win both championships. That's an awesome accomplishment for what you guys had back then. Tell us about some All-Pro stuff. What did you guys do with the All-Pro cars?
I was Slick ran a lot of All-Pro races. I wasn't around that much because at the time I was living in Houston. Last All-Pro race was probably around 2001, somewhere around there. We went to Memphis, Tennessee, and ran. And Slick did real good. Had a right rear tire come loose and kind of killed the day, but he did real good.
No, that's racing sometimes. Unfortunately, things like that do happen. So you were in the Houston area, and then you migrated back to the Coastal Bend from that point?
Right.
And then where did it go from there?
Well, that's when I bought the propane company.
Okay. And you decided you were going to sell propane and propane accessories.
That's right, man.
Living the dream, as they
buddy.
say.
Yeah, buddy.
But at that point, there was no race gas there. I assume it took a little bit of a transition to get it there?
That's correct. I actually started out selling Sunoco, and the deal never did materialize. I couldn't get the gas that I wanted when I wanted, and then I got hooked up with VP, and just call them on the phone, and they show up with about 3 days later.
Cool deal. So you've bought the propane business now. You're selling race gas now. Are we still involved in the local racing scene?
I go to the track and watch the cars. I personally am not involved in it.
Right, but I guess what I'm asking is, after you purchased the propane business, Slick had moved off.
Yeah.
Slick moved away to do some grander things in some instances, or some different things, however that may be. And do you know much of what happened with him after he moved off?
So he moved off to start a wrecking yard, and somewhere around, I would say, the late 80s, my brothers built a T-Bird, and Slick would come down and drive it, and then eventually Alan Yates bought the car, and then went and ran a bunch of TIDA stuff.
So when Slick showed up, was he like the Days of Thunder deal where he just showed up with his duffel bag and a helmet and went to race, or was he the guy that had the wrenches in his pocket? We were going to turn on some stuff and then we're going to drive the car.
You know, my brother set the car up to where basically when he showed up, he pretty much knew what he had. Just needed a little bit of fine tuning.
That's cool. It's good that they had that kind of understanding.
Yeah,
the guy could show up and race the car and feel confident that he had something to work with.
Yep.
A lot of times, if you're not the one wrenching on the car and you show up, you don't really know what you have. So building that bond with your brother was probably took many, many years.
Yep.
So after that, what happened?
Okay, so ran these TIDA races, and then he won. If I recall, he's got the most TIDA championships. Most wins, and it just kind of faded out. You know, Alan had some health problems, and so he had to get out of it, and so just dried up.
So on this report that we found on the internet talks about Slick Yeoman. It says that Slick Yeoman had 26 wins. It says he has the most wins here. Looks like he had 5 titles. I'm assuming that's all going to be late model titles, TADA type stuff.
Right. And he missed 2 of them by 1 point.
Really?
Yep.
Crazy deal. And he ran with some fast guys. We got Rick Rapp on there. We got some Umschides. We got all kinds of big names
John
that
Kelly.
ran in that series and in that time. So where did we go from there? So tell us a little bit about what you did.
So when that dried up, I needed something to occupy my life, and so I thought I'm going to build a car, and so I went out and bought an old Mustang, and
We're gonna make a late model out of it.
no, I wanted a parking lot racer, a SCCA car, and I built it, and I was going to make a parking lot racer and a drag car.
I did some SCCA racing one time, and they got mad at me because I was doing burnouts in the parking lot.
It's a different deal.
I thought that was normal. They told me it was not.
No, it's a different deal. And so I built this car, and I was trying to do both, and I sucked at both of them. So then I just 9/11 came.
Hold on. So when you say you sucked at both, was it just wasn't what you really wanted to do, or did you really just have a hard time struggling with it? Because I would assume jumping out of circle track stuff to the parking lot racer, as you called it, it's a huge transition. Maybe it just wasn't your cup of tea at the time.
I just I wasn't that good of a driver.
It's definitely when I road raced, I did that deal. Like I said, they got upset at me because I did some burnouts in the parking lot.
Yeah.
They asked me not to do that, but I've always circle track raced. So when I went out there on that road course trying to figure out those cones and follow those cones was tough. So don't sell yourself short. It's a little harder than most people realize. Chasing cones is what I called it.
But 9/11 hit, and it shut the cabinets field down. So I decided to just go ahead and convert the car into a drag car, and then
I'm sure it had nitrous by this point.
Man, nitrous is almost day one. And,
so hold on. So now that you said that, was there any nitrous on any late models? Anything we want to talk about at this point?
No, we couldn't talk him into cheating.
Well,
we tried to get him to soak some tires, and he wouldn't do it.
Wasn't going to do it. That's cool. That's cool.
Slick was always straight up.
I'm just asking the obvious question that everyone else has probably asked 100 times or insinuated 100 times. So, all right. So you got this car. You decided that parking lot racing wasn't your deal, and you're staring at it, deciding, all right, what are we going to do with this thing?
Yep. So I took it up to Austin, got it 4-linked, and turned it into a drag car. And at the time, it was still a stick shift car, and I'd killed clutches. I mean, I'd put a clutch in it, and the next week I'd kill it. So I decided to put an automatic in it, and Lawrence built me an C4, and for what we were doing with it, the transmission lasted longer than I thought it should last.
So Lawrence Maklicek is huge in the Corpus Christi area in the Coastal Bend. Probably 75% of the race cars at the local dirt tracks have an Ace transmission in it. I don't know a whole lot about the street racing scene anymore, but obviously he was huge in the drag racing scene for a little while. Yeah. Maybe still is, I don't know, but that's a big name in the Coastal Bend.
Yeah.
So after Lawrence got you fixed up on the transmission and we were able to control all that horsepower that Ford was putting out, what did we do from there?
We just, we ran some races, and basically...
When you say some races, were drag racing?
Yeah, drag racing, I'm sorry,
okay. That's all right.
And basically we kind of put so much power on the transmission that we were killing it, and finally had to go to a power glide.
Really?
Yep. And it was nothing that Lawrence did. It was breaking the transmission. I'd break output shafts.
The Power Glide to me is like the most versatile transmission.
Oh, yeah.
We run in circle track stuff, but I see guys doing drag racing. I see guys doing big horsepower drag racing with that Power Glide, and I think like 1965 is when it was produced.
Yeah, something way
crazy.
back then. The thing is, you can buy any aftermarket part for it.
Yeah.
When in a C4, I kept breaking output shafts, and I was worried that Lawrence was going to run out output shafts.
He still has some. I sold him a few cores.
Okay.
So we started doing some drag racing. We got the transmission problem figured out. We got the engine running.
Yep.
We're 4-linked. We're traveling to some different drag strips because I guess there really wasn't a drag strip in Corpus Christi.
Nope. Mainly the Valley, Edinburgh, and also San Antonio. And then, of course, I've gone to Houston. There's 2 tracks in Houston, been to both tracks in Houston, and then we went to Adel, Georgia.
Unfortunately, I think we lost one of those drag strips in Houston.
We did.
I guess last week they started doing demolition on it, I saw.
And the one in San Antonio's gone also.
Oh, wow. So we're traveling, doing this drag racing stuff. You had a good time? Family's involved? Everybody's involved? Well, tell us a little bit about that.
I never did want to make a job out of it, and... So I would try to run once a month, just to have something fun to do, because I didn't want to. I wanted to be good at it, but I didn't want to. I didn't want it. I had kids growing up, or getting older, and I wanted to make sure that I could spend some time with them.
No, racing is one of those deals. It can and it will consume all of your time
Yes.
if you let it.
Yes.
Racing is also one of those deals that's hard to walk away from.
Yes.
Once it's in your blood, whether it be straight line racing, whether it be parking lot racing, as you say, or circle track racing, once it's in your system, it's hard to get out. So I definitely understand the struggles. I myself tried to step away from some circle track racing for a little while, and it didn't work, obviously. So we're doing some drag racing. We're having a good time. And then somebody said you were on a TV show.
I was on actually 2 of them. It was Pastime that was filmed in San Antonio, and then Pink All Out, which was filmed in Houston. And the deal in Houston was they took a bunch of cars and they ran these cars, and then they took the cars that was closest to the time. So in other words, I think they picked. I was running like 950s at the time, and I think they picked some cars that were running like 1050s, and they took. I'm pretty sure it's 12 cars, and they ran those cars, and then the one obviously that won the race was $10,000 richer.
So tell me a little bit about this process. So how did you get registered, or how did you get picked, or how did you become part of the show?
If I remember correctly, they put something on the internet, and you just registered and paid your fees and showed up.
I got you. So answer this question, because this is what everyone always asks: is it real or is it fake? I mean, did they really run these cars down the line?
Oh yeah,
it was a real deal.
Yep.
So I'm sure they did some editing on TV, time wise and stuff. But it was actually a real race.
They actually picked the tightest group of cars.
That's cool. Did you sign a bunch of autographs? People recognize you. People are like, hey, that's Jody Keys.
No.
Yeah. No. Well, we're gonna change that for you on this show.
I appreciate that. I carry a pen just in case.
What time are you at work, so I can send everybody over? Well, that's cool. So after we did the Pinks All Out and Pastime, I believe it was, what did we do after that? We're still racing the car. We're still showing it off.
I got into index racing, and index racing basically.
You know my buddy Todd Robinson?
Oh yeah, I know Todd. He's actually a really good friend of mine.
That's cool.
He's won more races than I've been to.
Me and Todd did some business a couple months ago, and Todd told me that he was one of the fastest guys in bracket racing.
He's really
That's a
really
true statement.
Good, yes.
All right.
He bought a new car from somebody this last weekend and took it up to the track in Dallas and won with it.
No, I saw on Facebook him and Scott
Scott
Ball
Ball
were there,
yep.
and they won.
He's that good.
That's cool.
Him and Scott are that good.
That's awesome. No, Todd's a good dude. Scott Ball got involved in some circle track racing with Johnny Torres.
Torres, yeah.
Those are good guys as well. And to me, it's kind of neat, the transition with the circle track and the drag racing and going back and forth. Like the passion for both of them with those guys is pretty cool. So now what are we doing?
Okay, so we're index racing and did pretty good, and basically ran it or index raced until I had some health issues with my back, and it put me out for about a year and a half.
I'm assuming it's from all the G-forces from drag racing or all the fuel drums, or maybe both.
Yeah, sniffing the fuel, I guess, sniffing the nitrous. But so I kind of laid back for a little bit, and then I got back into it, and I just. It was getting to the point, once I had my back operation, it was really hard for me to work on the car.
Yeah.
And then plus, you got to remember, I've been around racing since day one.
Yeah.
And used to, I'd bring my car home and I'd put it up on jack stands and I'd pull the oil pan off of it and look at the rod bearings and stuff like that. And then now it's getting to the point to where I didn't even want to put air in the tires.
If it didn't leak, it wasn't leaking, don't mess with it.
That's right.
No, I understand. Sometimes we get in those ruts like that.
Yep.
So we decided maybe we just need to do something different with the hot rod, but I'm sure you wanted to make sure it went into good hands. It was your baby for many, many years. In fact, that's how I knew you was because of that Mustang.
Oh, really? Yeah, I sold it to a good buddy of mine, J.R. Galvan, and he's got the car, and he's actually run it once, but he's more taking it to car shows and stuff like that. And I had to have something to tinker with, so I went and bought me a little 65 Mustang Fastback, but it's got air conditioning and power steering, and
You still get the itch every now and then, pull up to a light and there's some youngster next to you and you just kind of give it a little vroom, and here we go.
No.
We're not out on Saturday nights street racing somewhere.
No.
He's not going to say yes.
I don't want to embarrass myself with that car. It's got a stock motor in it. It's got Flowmasters on it. I'm sorry.
Hey, everybody's having a good time. That's how I knew you was from that red Mustang. Honestly, like I said, I just assumed that's what you had always done. And when I talked to you the other day and you said that you had been involved in circle track racing, I had no idea. I didn't even know that you had been around that side of it. So that's what it kind of intrigued me when you started telling me that. I had no idea, and I figured if I didn't know, probably some other people didn't know either. What is one of the things that you've seen in the Corpus area? You've obviously you've sold a lot of race fuel, you sold a lot of nitrous. You've probably seen a ton of trends in racing, probably more than anybody else, really, because people are probably coming to you asking questions about nitrous, asking questions about fuel. Like, you care to add any of the trends that you may have seen, or anything that kind of comes to mind?
Well, a lot of people think that you can put high octane in your engine and it's going to help, and it won't. It hurts.
It's a huge misconception.
It is. I had my car in the dyno once, and I used C16, which is 116 octane fuel.
Yeah.
And the reason I used it because I sprayed a lot. So we were running
when he
it.
says spray, he's talking
nitrous.
Nitrous.
Sprayed a lot of nitrous. And so we had it on the dyno, and we were just running it on motor. And so we made 3 pulls on C16 and averaged it out. And then we drained that and put unleaded in, super unleaded, because I didn't have any compression. And we put super unleaded in and made 3 more pulls. And I picked up like 16 horsepower.
Oh, wow.
Just from the fuel.
No, I understand. A lot of folks think just because it's a higher octane or because it costs more, it's better. But a lot of times it does hurt.
And I tell them all the time, I said, the fuel, if you could just pour in fuel and give you horsepower, everybody would be doing it.
Yeah.
It allows you to put time in it, compression, to get the horsepower.
What about the transition from what we know as the small block Chevrolet stuff to some of these newer cars, the newer Hondas and overhead valve type and those type of things? Is that a whole different generation of kids just trying to learn different things?
Lots of computers.
Yeah.
Lots of computers that can tell you a lot. I had one on my car, a Haltech system, and Donnie Moore had put it in, and I came in one time, and he said, "We need to soften your shocks." And I said, "How do you know that?" By looking at the screen. And he said, "Here's your drive shaft RPM," and you could see where the drive shaft RPM picked up and then slowed down, which is telling us that it was spinning the tires.
Technology is huge.
Yeah.
We're not allowed to have some of that stuff on our regular dirt cars. But we do have some telemetry on our go-karts, like our kids running. You'd be surprised what you can learn just from watching that data logger. Simple things, RPM, speed, stuff like that. It's a huge help. Surprises me every day the more and more stuff we learn about that. So after JR bought the car, your health, you're back. Where are we at with the butane business, the propane business?
We are still working there. And like I say, the gentleman that bought it's a local gentleman. He's doing a great job. I go in and basically just kind of help out.
That's cool. No, I'm glad to see you're still
involved. Give me something to do. Because I was at home, and I wouldn't get up till 9 or 9:30 in the morning. I was getting fat, and I thought, I've got to do something. So I went back and I said, "Hey, dude, I need a job." He said, "Come on."
Well, that's cool. I'm glad they welcomed you back with open arms.
Yep.
Hopefully they can keep that thing going with the same family atmosphere that it's always had.
Yep, he's doing great.
I believe Megan Dotson works out there. She's a local racer as well.
Super sweet.
All right, well, let's talk a little bit about Jody.
Okay.
I was told that you had a problem with vegetables.
I do.
All right, so tell us a little bit about that. Oddly enough, I want to know about your problem with vegetables.
I don't have a problem with them. I just don't like them. I've never eaten a salad.
Okay, say that one more time.
I have never.
How old are you?
I am 65 years old. I have never eaten a salad. Basically, the only vegetables I like are corn, potatoes, green beans. I think that's about it. You know what? I'll eat some lettuce on a hamburger every now and then, but basically when I get a hamburger, meat, mayonnaise. And it's kind of weird because I don't like tomatoes, but I like ketchup. I don't like grapes, but I like grape juice. I don't like oranges, but I like orange juice.
Well,
I
to
guess
each their own, I suppose. I was told that, and I was like, "There's no way."
I'm not a stranger. I'm just strange.
Well, at least they're honest about it. That's crazy. No, when I read that, I was like, "No, that can't be true." So I wanted to ask you about it.
That's a true statement.
Sounds like it was a true statement.
If they don't have soup, then I'll just bow out.
I'm not a huge vegetable fan, but I have eaten a lot of salads. You can't tell by my physique, but I have had some salads. Tell me one of the things that you enjoyed most about racing, whether it was circle track racing or parking lot racing or drag racing.
You know, it's one of those things that it just gets into your skin. Man, I can smell burnt fuel, and I just love it. Just burnt fuel and burnt rubber, and you
can
go out
you
to the
smell
track.
when you smell somebody's exhaust? Can you tell what kind of fuel it is?
Yeah.
C12, C10, some VP red.
Yep.
If you had to guess, how many gallons of fuel do you think you've sold of race gas?
Man,
if you had to guess, let's make it easy. How many barrels of fuel do you think you sold?
Okay, there's 54 gallons in a barrel. I probably sold well over 2,500 barrels.
In how many years?
Roughly about 2,000, somewhere around there.
And how many pounds of nitrous do you think you've
man.
Let me ask this
How
question.
how much did I use?
That's what I was going to say. How much nitrous do you think you sold, and how much do you think you actually used? Because I'm going to assume that Mustang didn't have just a small shot on it.
No, it had 350 horsepower shot on it, and I was the best customer.
You were almost like the drug dealer at that point.
Yeah, really. As far as man, we used to buy nitrous by 20 cylinders at a time.
Really?
And they'd last about a month.
Crazy.
Yeah.
So what is the local scene now? Obviously, there's not a drag strip in Corpus. There's not one in the San Antonio area now in Houston. So is it strictly just Edinburgh at this point?
The drag is Edinburgh, and obviously the round track is the South Texas Race Ranch.
Yeah. Man, I like I said earlier, I had no idea about your history in the circle track stuff until I talked to you that day, and you and I were discussing this podcast deal, and you brought that up. So I thought that was really neat. I thought it was important to bring on the show and talk to you and get your story out there. The Yeomans, they're a huge name in the local racing as well. Many, many years, and we hope to find out some more about those guys. Also, the Rollins family, you brought those names up. Those guys were huge in the local racing as well. So we do appreciate your stories. We appreciate your time, and thank you for coming on the show.
So something that a lot of people don't know is that my wife Martha and Slick are first cousins.
Really?
And that's how I met her.
And Slick has a brother named Racer.
His real name is Kyle, but everybody calls him Racer.
So it's just his nickname. So is Slick his real name, or was Slick a nickname as well?
Nickname. His real name is Aaron.
Oh, okay.
And we actually had dinner with Kyle Racer last Wednesday up in San Antonio. Went to San Antonio. Slick's daughter-in-law is basically a traveling dental assistant, and she was in San Antonio, so we met her up there and had dinner with her and Racer.
That's cool. Family-wise, how did you and your wife come to meet?
Just out the track. It's been a long time ago. You're gonna put me on the spot. I don't really remember. I just remember it was at the racetrack.
That's all right. We don't need years because I don't remember things like that either. But
and Karen Yeomans had a lot to do with it.
So they introduced you at the track, and it was happily ever after.
Yep, pretty much.
Well, that's cool, man. I appreciate your stories. I appreciate your time.
Enjoyed being here.
We, like I said before, I didn't know the history of you and the circle track stuff. I've always known you, the red Mustang doing drag racing stuff. Phil Underwood, he introduced me to
Phil.
you
Yeah, I know
years
Phil.
ago, and that's kind of how I knew you.
Guy.
And I didn't want to say this earlier, but I did work with Tommy Temple for a small amount of time, and actually we're big sponsors of his son Triton. So, man, I appreciate your time. I appreciate you coming on, and thank you very much.
Not a problem.
And as the checkered flag flies on this episode, I would like to take a moment to thank our sponsors, Proline Fabrication, 112 Bodies, SNS Monuments, and of course, Top Hat Signs and Designs. And if you would like to become a sponsor of our podcast, please email us and you'll see the email address in the description below. Also, I would like to thank Jody Keys for taking his time to come and be on the show. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube video, and thank you very much.